Hey fellas, how you doing? It's Johnny. I just got back today. I was teaching a student who travelled over from Europe to work with me on my 6 weeks program. And as I was working with him today and yesterday, some things came up that he was struggling with. And I struggle with these things as well until I sorted them out. And a lot of these things will link back to, of course, my social anxiety at the time and my childhood trauma. So what I'm going to speak to you about, sorry, I'm tired today. What I'm going to speak to you in this video today about, I'm going to speak to you about honesty. So it's interesting for me because for most, well, if not all of my life, I always considered myself an honest person, and I'm sure you do watching this video. And I was brought up with good family values, treating people with respect. Obviously, you shouldn't steal, you shouldn't cheat. All the obvious things that we know are not honest. And we know that when we do those things, they don't make us feel good. And of course, there's people in the world that do dishonest things, that goes without saying, but there's people that live with integrity and are honest. And from my experience and learning and observing other people and seeing how they're happy and practicing it for myself, people that live with honesty tend to be happier. We could beg to differ, but that seems to be the case. So I really want to go deep into honesty, because I have lots of conversations with people I work with, and to start with, they'll say, I am honest, but I am honest. When I actually sit people down and speak to people and they start opening up, I actually find out it's the complete opposite. They're actually very dishonest. As a matter of fact, they're dishonest in every single area of their life. It's all been rationalized. They've rationalized their dishonesty, and it's a part of their personality that obviously they've built to hide. I did a video a while back called Taking Your Mask Off. And of course, I did this myself for many years. And it always seems to be the same pattern with men and with women. I've only worked with 2 women so far. I've just started to teach women. This seems to be the case with men. Now I'm going to go into it because it's quite deep, and it's quite difficult to explain it in one line or one sentence, because people will usually immediately say, I'm not dishonest. People get really defensive when you say that, I'm afraid you are dishonest. You're dishonest in so many areas. I'm going to have to get a notepad to write these down. We could go on forever. So what I'm going to do is, in this video, so I don't feel smug, I don't feel arrogant, I don't feel like I'm honest now, and everyone who comes to me dishonest, I'm going to tell you all the things in my life that I was ashamed of where I was dishonest. I'm going to tell you how I put them right. And I'm also going to tell you how better it made me feel. And then I'm going to explain how I've been helping other people to do it. And hopefully watching this video, if you are looking to become more honest and definitely get rid of your social anxiety and become more attracted to women, and not just to women, to yourself. So I'm going to go into it and explain it. I feel emotional today. Excuse me. I feel really emotional today. I feel like I'm going to struggle to get it out because I'm trying to transfer a truth that takes a while to understand. So, excuse me, let me run through all the dishonest things I was doing, and I'll explain to you how I was deceiving myself, because we always deceive ourselves before we deceive anyone else. It always works like that. There's no way you can get around it. So, first place, I was dishonest in my relationships. I was being something doesn't want to let me speak today. Right, let's keep going. I was cheating on all the women I was dating. I'll spell it out for you. So I had a girlfriend, and I was going behind her back, and I was going out on the street, and I was picking up other women, and I was having sex with them. First area of dishonesty. And that was making me feel. It was making me feel worthless. It was making me not trust my girlfriend. So I was being dishonest, and I was blaming her. In my own mind, I was thinking, I can't trust her. She's going to cheat on me. She's going to cheat on me any moment. And I was looking out, and I kept feeling like I could see signs. But I was doing it myself. So whether she was doing that or not, it didn't make it right. I never actually had proof that she did cheat on me. But anyway, that's not important. So that was one area, cheating with women. What was the next area of relationship? It's being dishonest to my mum and dad. Sounds extreme. Sounds really extreme. And probably I've got flies attacking me. This is a good sign. Probably my mum and dad would actually say, and my mum did say this, you're not dishonest, because obviously I'm their son, they love me, and to some extent they're going to defend that, because sometimes I understand for parents, if their son or daughter announces they're dishonest and they want to change their life around, that can make them feel like they've done a dishonest job. People can sometimes get insecure and think about themselves. Does that make sense? I haven't confused you. So I wasn't honest with my mum and dad. Let's move on to my friendships at the time. This is going back about 2.5 years ago. I was dishonest with all my friends. It come as a shock to me, because I would never have considered myself a dishonest person. Let me go a little bit deeper for you. I didn't trust my friends. I didn't trust my family. Of course I didn't trust my family, because when I was younger, my dad was abusive towards me. I couldn't open up, I couldn't speak to him. I couldn't speak to my dad like this. I couldn't express myself, couldn't be vulnerable. I couldn't speak. When I did speak, it was edited conversation. It wasn't free flowing, and it didn't feel right. Emotionally, I could be talking about the football or what I did earlier, but I was hiding all the time. So, was dishonest in my romantic relationships with women, dishonest with my mum and dad, and I was dishonest with my male friends. And I'll give you an example of how I was dishonest with my friend, because when I teach people and I explain this, and just when I talk to people, they always say, you didn't seem dishonest a couple of years ago in your old videos when you was going out meeting women. Well, let me explain. A friend of mine I'd known for a long time, and of course I really liked him, the same way I love my family. It doesn't mean when you're dishonest with someone you don't love them, by the way. I just want to make that clear, because lots of people get really defensive and they think that when you say they're dishonest or when you announce that you've been dishonest, people usually always reflect it on them. It's a very, very controversial, sensitive topic, because no one wants to be called dishonest. I certainly don't, but most people are living dishonestly. They're doing it every day. They're doing it throughout their whole life. And they don't actually consciously realise they're doing it. All they know is that they don't feel right, they're not happy, they've got low self-esteem, they're not very good at trusting themselves, and of course they're not good at trusting other people, hence why intimacy in relationships or in their relationships, it's not to be seen. And that's another thing that came out today with the guy that I was working with. He said, I want intimacy. I want to have intimacy with people. I want to have intimacy with a woman. I want to have it with friends. I want to make new friends. And I said, well, you want to have intimacy with yourself. And he said to me, what do you mean by that? How do I do that? And I said, well, that's a good question. It's hard for me to answer that in one line or just one method. This is a process. You've got to change. You've got to have integrity. You've got to be yourself. You've got to learn to trust yourself. And the way you have intimacy with yourself is, of course, to know yourself. Is to know who you are and to be the person that you really want to be. And that's a gradual process. And I'm going to go through the ways that I did that and the way that I teach that. So, I've sidetracked a bit. I do that in my videos, never mind. So, coming back to my friend, I'll tell you this story. It's a fable, it's completely true, and it will explain all the other areas of my relationships where I was dishonest. He was bullying me. I know that sounds ridiculous. I'm 6'2". I think I weigh between 175 to 180 pounds. I used to be an amateur boxer. And I'm not saying all this to brag, I'm making a bit of fun, it's true. And I used to be a really good street fighter. I had loads of street fights growing up, and of course I didn't like fighting, I got bullied. My dad bullied me to start with, and then I got bullied around my area and I became really vicious, really vicious. I was so scared of people humiliating me, I used my hands. But my friend a few years ago, and lots of other friends, he was bullying me socially. He was socially more thorough than I was. He was socially more confident. I didn't have social confidence like I've got now, because I didn't know who I was. I was embarrassed of who I was, ashamed of who I was. And he knew this, and I knew that he knew this, and he knew that I knew this, but I didn't have the courage to stand up to him, because I'd be rejected. I was frightened of being abandoned. That's so extreme, but that's the truth. There's no point beating around the bush. There's no point fucking around with it. Sorry my language, I'm trying to stop swearing, this is passion. There's no point denying it, that was the truth. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let him continue to do this. And my relationship was getting worse and worse with him. And I was thinking, why do I always feel angry when I'm around him? Why do I feel negative? Why do I feel okay for some periods of the time, but most times I don't feel like I trust him? Because that's the relationship I had with me. I was angry at myself, I didn't trust myself, and I was a dishonest person. So I was attracting that in my relationships. And all of these, all this material, all this content was in my conversations. My conversations were being heavily filtered because I was wearing a mask. And I wanted to protect myself from intimacy, which is actually the very thing, of course, that I need and that everyone needs and we all yearn for. But I didn't realise, and I said this to my student today, we cannot get intimacy if we cheat. We can't manipulate our way to intimacy. And what's intimacy if we go deeper? Of course, intimacy is love. And that's what everyone wants. And if we don't get love, or if we struggle to get love, we're going to bend the rules. We're going to try and find other means to get love whilst we protect ourselves. But love doesn't work like that. Wholesome relationships don't work like that. I've got a lifetime experience, so I know this. Didn't have to read it in a book. I didn't have to go to a psychologist. Well, I went to a counsellor. I got a good teacher, a spiritual teacher. But do you understand what I mean? I had a lifetime experience of this. I got sick and tired of I couldn't trust anyone. And I even hid the fact that I couldn't trust people to myself. And the area where I always went, because it gave me some sense of love, women. Growing up as a young boy, one of the areas where I was insecure, because of the trauma with my dad, because of the bullying around my area, because of the lack of intimacy with my mum. Even when my mum offered me intimacy, I was scared of it. I didn't know how to deal with it. Unconsciously, as I said, I was frightened that my mum and dad would abandon me. And that's what created my social phobia. That's what created my anxiety. That's why I struggled so badly for so many years with having eye contact with people for long periods of time, or just for how I am. See how I am now in the camera. If you was a person standing here 3 years ago, well, let's go back 5 years ago, I would be like this. Because what I was saying was, I'm ashamed of who I am. I don't want you to see me. I don't want you to look in my eyes, because my eyes are full of shame. They're full of sorrow. I don't think sorrow is the right word, sorry. But they're full of guilt and they're full of anger. I had so much anger because I was hurt. I was carrying that pain for many years. So what I find with a lot of men is, that I coach and I work with, they rationalise their dishonesty. So they say, well, I'm going out to meet women, and that's not honest. Meeting women isn't honest. Meeting women isn't dishonest, is it? And I say, no, of course meeting women isn't dishonest. Of course meeting people isn't dishonest. But the ethics that you're using, that's questionable. Because you can't be dishonest in 5 places and then be honest in one place and say I'm an honest person, because you're not. You're a hypocrite and you're kidding yourself short, or you're selling yourself short, and I've done it. So I've done all the bad things. I'm not in a position to judge anyone, but I am in a position to say I've turned my life around. And I've dedicated my whole life now to helping people to turn their life around. And I fiddled about. I fucked around for many years. I was sleeping with lots of women. And it's interesting, isn't it, that if I go back years ago when I didn't have the capability to have sex with women, and I was scared of intimacy with women, I was terrified of sex, and it's interesting we're on the topic of intimacy, I shouldn't have said it. If I go back to 16, in this very park, as I speak now in this camera, further down, I was a virgin. I met this girl through social circle, friends. I was naive. I was 16 and a half. Of course, you know, at those ages I was masturbating, but I'd never had sex with a girl. I'd never seen a girl naked actually in front of me. And when I had the opportunity and a girl, you know, undressed herself and invited me to have sex with her, I was terrified. Because again, that fear that came up in me was from the past. So my past fear with my dad, which was a lack of intimacy on both sides, I didn't trust him. I didn't trust anyone. And I didn't even trust my own self with my own body, and to even have an intimate conversation with myself. You see the way I talk to you guys now, with honesty, transparency. I love this. You can see how much I enjoy it. I'm sure you're enjoying watching me, hopefully. If you're not, never mind. I couldn't have this conversation with myself because I was ashamed of myself. I didn't like myself. I absolutely hated myself years ago when I was doing all these dishonest things. So as time went on, of course I looked to people, what I perceived to be happy people, to be good. I looked at the examples that were around me. And the examples that were around me were guys having sex with lots of women. So I associated if you're having sex with lots of women, that means that you must be confident. I never realised as I got older and I took on that persona and I did that, it couldn't have been anything further from the truth. It's actually the opposite. And I was so shocked, and it took me many years to admit it, because I'd invested, 10 years into this. I even taught this. We can take an honest concept and we can play around, we can spin it, rationalise it and make it dishonest. So I could say, for example, it's nothing dishonest about selling things to people, and it's not. Businesses run all around the world. I run a business, I run an online business. This is part of my business, my work. I enjoy it. But if you cheat people, if you steal, well, it's no longer an honest business. And I'll justify it for you if you like. Years ago, I used to run a business when I was 19. I was a full-time drug dealer. I sold drugs to people to make money because I was insecure, I had low self-esteem. And I didn't have intimacy in my life, I had no trust. And I was terrified when I was drug dealing. I was always worried that I might be stabbed, I might be shot. And in the end, it was a godsend, because the police caught me. Someone had told of me or reported me, and it ended up being a good thing. Another example of dishonesty, and I rationalised it. I said, well, everyone else is doing it around my area. It's very hard to get a job, I don't have qualifications. I found a rationalisation. I'm not going to do it for long, I'm going to stop soon. Rationalisation. Same with casual sex with women. When I was doing it, I would say, I'm not going to listen to religious people. Religious people are soft, they're not in touch with reality. But then I realised I wasn't in touch with reality. But then we'll say, well, which reality? Because of course, we can create the reality that we want to live in. And I had a reality that was no intimacy, no trust, no love, angry all the time. So the more sex I had with women, when I was being dishonest, the more angry I became. The more I started to get paranoid, the more I started to not trust people. Got to a point where I didn't even enjoy the sex. The sex was just like, and I'm sorry to be a little bit graphic if there's any women watching, or older people or kids, the sex became like, wanking off to pornography, because there was no intimacy. Because we can't have it both ways. We can't have intimacy and dishonesty. It doesn't work that way. I don't make the rules, guys. I don't make the rules. That's just how nature is. That's the spirit of every person, or the psychology. If I was wrong, well, I wouldn't be doing this video. You wouldn't be watching this video. So I realised I was dishonest, and I'll keep going. And I was dishonest in my friendships. I didn't speak up. I was a people pleaser. People pleasing is dishonest. Now, don't get people pleasing confused with being nice, because I used to get it mixed up. I used to think, well, if I have to stop people pleasing, that means I've got to be really horrible to people and really firm and dominant. It doesn't mean that. The actual fact that I was being a people pleaser made me a bully. Because I was saying yes to alcohol with friends when I didn't want to drink alcohol. Rationalisation, again, people will say, well, it's okay to have a few beers, it's not dishonest. I never said it was. But if you drink beers, get drunk, and slag off all your friends, and then steal from friends, and then cheat your friend's girlfriend, and these are the things that I've seen going on, it becomes something you use, to rationalise as a good means for a bad means. So lots of men will say, it's not dishonest to go out on the street and to meet a woman. Well, I never said it was. But when you rationalise something that is natural and honest, you can meet a woman anywhere. What difference does it make? But the ethics you use. And I've said it before, you don't have to be religious, you don't have to be spiritual. Either you're going to practice honesty and live with honesty, or you're not. And if the dishonesty worked, I wouldn't have transformed, I wouldn't have changed my identity, I wouldn't have started to teach this. So when I was doing this dishonesty, my social anxiety, for a period, it got better, because I forged a separate personality. I wore a mask, and I acted confident, I acted tough. And I manipulated women, I manipulated people, and then people manipulated me back. And on an unconscious level, I was aware of it. When I speak to people, when I work with them on a 6 weeks program, and I really sit them down and we get talking, they're like that, they can't believe it. It's almost like a mini awakening. You can have a spiritual awakening when you waken up, and that can take a long period of time. Apparently people have had it, in a second, but it's like they wake up and they say, yeah. And then when they really think about it, they start looking at life and they see that they've been living dishonest for a very long time. And the dishonesty is what causing the low self-esteem. The dishonesty is causing the self-hate, it's causing the loneliness, it's causing the anxiousness. I couldn't be present when I was dishonest because I was always worried about what if I get caught. And the biggest person I was worried about getting caught out by was myself. And then you would say, of course, you would ask yourself, which self? And then you would realise there's an identity crisis going on. This is common as well with all the guys I work with, women as well that I work with. It's two people. One person is lovely, honest, righteous, integrity, confident, ambitious. But another person is angry, jealous, distrustful, paranoid, negative. So you have to change your habits.